Well, hello, Canadian Campaholic here with a little bit of an advice video. You know, one of the things that I love the most about having a home with a driveway is the ability to park my camper here, have easy access to it for maintenance, but also when you come back from a trip, it makes it a lot easier in terms of unpacking and taking things out of the rig. That, however, can lead to procrastination, complacency, and then potentially some challenges. Let's go inside and explain what I mean. So we used to store the trailer in an outdoor storage facility that was about 10 minutes away from our home. So we had to be very diligent about making sure that at the end of a trip, everything was out of the camper in terms of food items and basically anything we didn't want to keep in here. We also had to make sure that the fridge was all good to go and cleared out, and basically set up the rig so that it would stay clean, smell fresh, be safe and all good to go for the next trip. Sometimes having a driveway when we come back, we just want to get in and have a shower and relax and whatnot, and sometimes we slack a little bit. So we noticed in the weeks after our most recent trip, we camped back in June, and we started to notice in mid-July a really nasty smell coming from inside the camper. I'm going to be honest, it smelled a little bit like rotting meat. If you've ever smelled that, you'll know what I'm talking about. We did have a mouse get in here several years ago. It was caught in a trap and died underneath one of the bunks, and oh my god, it smelled horrendous. So we disposed of that, sanitized, cleaned, disinfected, and the smell finally started to go away. In this instance, though, I really couldn't figure out where it was coming from. So I, went to the back of the rig and I checked under the back bunk where the mouse had been previously. None of the traps under there had been set off. Everything smelled like cloves, nice and fresh. Popped open the water heater panel, nothing in there. Checked around the back of the toilet, checked in the panel down here beside the water pump, nothing at all. I couldn't trace the source of the smell. And I just happened to notice as I was exploring the rig that our fridge was fully closed. When you get back from a trip, regardless of where you're storing your camper, you should try to keep the freezer door propped open, maybe with a sponge. And make sure that the door of the fridge itself stays propped open. You do that because you want to make sure that air is flowing through here, keeping it dry, and so that you don't get any trapped moisture, which will lead to mold. When I opened this fridge, it was covered in black mold. It was a real mess. So I had to take apart all the shelves. I had to pop off these bottle grips. I didn't take the freezer apart, but I did take all the racks out, and excuse me, I ended up using a product called Concrobium, which is a mold killer, and sprayed down all of the mold, followed the directions, left it for the prescribed amount of time to kill off the mold, then proceeded to scrub the entire thing with hot water and soap, another treatment with Concrobium, another wash, and then lastly, because it's plastic, for good measure, I used a bleach cleaner and made sure that that helped sanitize things, and then you can see we've got a little container of baking soda in there. So I thought that was the end of the story, and you might be thinking that too, but it wasn't over yet. I was finding that every single time I'd come back into the camper the next day, it would stink again. And I really couldn't understand what was going on. And I went around the camper, underneath the benches, underneath the bed, and all over the place, mostly in compartments looking for the smell. And I thought, oh my God, it's just the fridge that, despite my efforts to clean it, I haven't done a good enough job. The smell's never going to go away. Fast forward to a day that we were going to the beach, and I needed something to go to the beach. And my wife said, oh, I think it's in the toy box in the trailer. We've got a little cardboard box at the front of the trailer. That cardboard box just has some toys for our toddler, and it also happened to have our 2 little bags with the collapsible fishing rods and fishing tackle in it. As I bent over to go through that box and I moved the fishing tackle, I was hit with the most god-awful rotten meat smell. Long story short, folks, when we fish, we don't always use worms for bait. We don't always use fake bait. We sometimes cut up hot dogs. Hot dogs, chunks of hot dogs are a great form of bait, especially when you're catching something like sunfish. Someone had left a piece of hot dog in a Ziploc bag in one of the fishing tackle boxes or tackle sets, and it had been sitting in this camper. I discovered this around the 20th of July, and it had been sitting in this camper since around June 10th. We've had temperatures routinely in the high 20s to high 30s Celsius. You're talking 80 to 98 degrees Fahrenheit consistently. Do the math, folks. That's a long time. Sorry if you're squeamish, but that sucker was liquefied. It was every shade of green I've ever seen. It was horrendous. So the fishing tackle is sitting in the shop with the bag open. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Might have to wash the container, rinse it down, something to get rid of the stink, but it was unbelievable. So the moral of the story is, don't get complacent with your unpacking and your looking after your camper when you get back from a trip. Make sure your microwave is propped open if you can, if you're not hooked up to shore power, to let it air out. Make sure your fridge is propped open to let it air out. And don't get lazy like me with unpacking. Go through the camper, make sure everything that was supposed to come out of it has come out of it. And lastly, if you do go fishing, don't leave some kind of bait that's meat sitting in it. Ugh. Anyway, I'm in the camper now, and it smells great. We're going to be going camping again probably in about 3 weeks. Hope you're having a great season. We'll talk to you later.